So in my work, both as a teacher and in my business, I think it's really important that we listen to the stories that people tell about nature and humans' place in nature. We all long for nature because when we're out there, something does happen. Like, I feel way more at peace when I'm sitting at Sunset Cliffs watching the Pacific crash against the red rocks than I do necessarily when I'm sitting at an intersection in the middle of traffic. And so the thing is that there is something about the natural world that does bring something to truth inside of our hearts. What is it about nature that does this for me? Why do I feel differently here than I do somewhere else? Anytime we think about nature, it has to be something that's absent of human. And that you see this in the way people want to go experience the most pristine or the most like extreme wild that they possibly can do and get away from humans. But like, just like you can hear this airplane coming over our head right now, there is nowhere in the world that doesn't have human fingerprints on it anymore. There will be noise pollution. There will be some trickle-down effect of us, and I think that thinking of us as animals outside of nature rather than as just natural animals doing the things that animals do in nature becomes a problematic thing right now.
Yeah.
So there's this push and pull, I think, between the narrative that humans are flawed and corrupt and need to be redeemed by nature, as well as this wonderful freedom that we experience when we are in the natural world.
I did a bike tour from San Diego, California to my friend's house in Eugene, Oregon. The mileage from San Diego to Eugene, Oregon was about 1,300 miles.
And how many miles did you do a day on average?
Well, we did about 50 miles to 60 miles a day on average.
And where did you stay? How did you stay at camp?
So each night we'd bike to a hike and bike site. Essentially, it's just $5 to stay there per person per night, and they're littered along the whole California and Oregon and Washington coast. So I had nothing to do for the summer of 2016, and I was thinking about getting an internship, but that wasn't really happening for me. And then in February, one of my close friends and coworkers offhandedly mentioned that she was thinking about biking to Oregon and asked if I wanted to join. And when someone asks you something like that, you can't say no. That's not something you can say no to. And I said, sure, I'll definitely come with you if you help me buy a bike. And so I bought the bike, and she and her family lent me a ton of gear. And from there, one thing led to another, and I actually ended up going. What ended up happening is I definitely had a lot of self-discovery, as with anything happens in life. I don't necessarily think it would have been less or more with the bike tour, but it was definitely a unique experience, and I'm really glad I did it. As you get into Humboldt area, you get these big, huge redwood trees, and over these over these green hills, with the sun shining through the trees, and you get this beautiful golden light, and you're just listening to the right music, and it's total nirvana. It's amazing.
Okay.
Life on the bike compared to life normally is really interesting. Life on the bike, I have a purpose. I have a tangible way to see how much work I've done that day. I've done 100 miles, I've done 60 miles, I've done 80 miles. That was that day. And I can visually look at Google Maps and say, that's what I've done today, right there. And every morning I would go to sleep feeling accomplished, and every morning I would wake up with a purpose. It can help for some people, but for me, I think the biggest thing I realized on the bike tour is that life-changing experiences don't happen in a month. Or they can, but what really matters more is your day-to-day activity and how you treat people and how other people treat you, and your interactions with other people and nature around you immediately. What I realized toward the end of the tour was it was about 3.5 weeks in. I had a few more days of riding, and I thought to myself, I could keep doing this. I could do this for a full year. I became very content with what I already had, with the 3 shirts I brought, with the 1 pair of pants I brought, with the food made on a stove this size. I became very content with it, and I kind of realized this is really all I need, and I really didn't need other things. And since then, I've definitely cut a lot of stuff out of my life. If you were to go to my bedroom right now, I have about 9 shirts, 3 pairs of pants, really not much to be in my room at all. And so I really realized then that I didn't need a ton of comfort, and comfort really comes from within. It's not something you can buy and then have for comfort, because you'll get used to that. Just for sound. Okay.
Go ahead, yeah.
Comfort comes from within. It's not something that you can always buy. And now I have this sort of new belief that the more comfort you have, the more uncomfortable you'll be. So if you have like a really comfortable bed and a comfortable couch, and you always feel comfortable, it's gonna kill. Comfort kills after a certain amount of time. And stripping yourself of some comfort and learning how to be comfortable without it is something invaluable, I think. You have a time to come into this world, and you have a time to go into this world, and all that matters is what you do in between, and the things you do and the way you treat people, and I think that ultimately matters.
All at once. My name's Cameron Townsend, and a trip that I went on is known as the John Muir Trail. It's a 220-mile backpacking trip that starts in Yosemite and goes down to Mount Whitney.
You have a time to come into this world, and you have a time to go into this world, and all that matters is what you do in between, and the things you do and the way you treat people, and I think that ultimately.
All at once. My name's Cameron Townsend, and a trip that I went on is known as the John Muir Trail. It's a 220-mile backpacking trip that starts in Yosemite and goes down to Mount Whitney. All at once. My name's Cameron Townsend, and a trip that I went on is known as the John Muir Trail. It's a 220-mile backpacking trip that starts in Yosemite and goes down to Mount Whitney.
And you take us there and go through it with us.
So it's going to sound really weird, but my favorite moment was the realization of how annoyingly beautiful your surroundings are. Every major thing that I felt out there is the emotional aspect. And as I've mentioned, this trip to me was sort of an emotional journey to start, because I was out there with my dad. I wanted to support him. I wanted to do something that he really wanted to do. So it was very emotional for me, because I started it with my dad. My brother joined in halfway and finished it with us. So there was quite a bit of emotional bonding and stuff happening at the same time on the trail. Yes, they're all like-mindedness to a point. They have this curiosity, this urge to go out and explore and adventure by means of backpacking. But really, every person you meet is a unique individual. They come from a different background. They come from a different history. They come for a different reason. I don't think I've ever met anybody else on the trail who was a late blooming college student who decided to turn their life around and become a geology teacher. Although I'm sure they're out there, I've just never personally met them. Every single person I've met has come from a different backstory. And I've learned more as a person by meeting these people, because then I realize where they come from, what their situation is, and how it affects their life. Every trip, no matter how drained I felt, I still felt great. Like, my body was sore, tired, sweaty, stinky, but I felt so good. And I really enjoyed that feeling, and I wanted to recreate that every year. And so from 2009 to 2013, I did the John Muir Trail every year, and I had the same feeling every single time. And that's what kept me going back to it. That's what kept me wanting to do it, was just that feeling refreshed mentally. A lot of the times when we are in our day-to-day lives, every single day, with hustle, 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 you need that break. And for me, that was my break. I would take 3 weeks off, and I'd go lose myself in the mountains, not literally lost, but like, self-reflect, soul search, think about my current state. And I just felt so refreshed after each and every trip. That's what kept me going back.
About 5 months and then 3 months of riding. For me personally, it's not about the place, it's about the people. Just meeting people that, you can connect with and have a good time, share stories with. I think those are the highlights. I don't think anybody goes into bike touring thinking, oh, I want everything planned. I want all this to go. I don't want it to rain. I want perfect weather. If that's what you want, you might as well stay home and stay in your bed and watch television. Because a part of it is you want the adversity. If you don't get the adversity, you don't get the stories, you don't get in your sick, dying bed going, hell, that was a hell of a ride. And that's what you want. I mean, it's really not anything magical and mystical about it. It's just feeding your soul. You need the ups and downs. You got to have it. You don't appreciate the good unless you get over a huge hump to get there. I can't remember how many states. So I started at Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, back in Alabama, Atlanta. Then I took a train from Atlanta to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati to Columbus, and then that's where I ended. But then I took a car from Columbus to New York, and I rode around New York City and Connecticut for about a week. So total was like I believe 5,500 miles. So it was a lot of miles. Anybody who does something like this is a type. But you have people that are just running away from people who can't stand people. That's why they're living on the road. And then there's people who are just going out to meet more people like myself. I specifically went out because I like to meet people. Getting out of your comfort zone, you have to have that. If you're not willing to do that, you will not be able to do that. That's first and foremost above anything. If you're going to go there and you're going to bitch and complain that the weather's changing, well, I don't know what you want to do about that. Getting out of your comfort zone, you have to have that. If you're not willing to do that, you will not be able to do that. That's first and foremost above anything. If you're going to go there and you're going to bitch and complain that the weather's changing, well, I don't know what you want to do about that. Oh, that's not a pretty picture. I'm married, and my wife definitely would not have condoned any of this, but I fell into a bad depression, kind of really black situation, and I knew I couldn't get out of it as long as I stayed here, and because I've become that guy everybody goes to for certain things. Even to my last week here, I had a friend of mine from this bike shop here who was killed, and immediately everybody comes to me about how do we deal with this, and it's bad enough I have a friend who's just killed, but then I got to still put that hat on. And I realized I have to just completely get away. I have to cut myself loose. Otherwise, everybody's just going to keep. Say about most bike tours is you come away, you go into thinking you need a lot of stuff. And this analogy will transfer over to the other thing. Everybody goes on bike tour, takes a lot of stuff, and they send a lot of it back. And you realize, you get through life, you need a lot less than you think you do. And the hard part, I think, is you come to those revelations and it becomes part of you and what you want to be in your life. And then you come back to regular life and it's telling you, no, you have to go back to, just like everybody else. You want a big house, you want a bigger house, you want a bigger house than that, you want a nicer car, you want a new car. You want all this stuff. And, now even though I was before kind of minimalist, now I'm like the minimal minimalist. Say about most bike tours is you come away, you go into thinking you need a lot of stuff, and this analogy will transfer over to the other thing. Everybody goes on bike tour, takes a lot of stuff, and they send a lot of it back. And you realize, you get through life, you need a lot less than you think you do. And the hard part, I think, is you come to those revelations and it becomes part of you and what you want to be in your life. And then you come back to regular life and it's telling you, no, you have to go back to, just like everybody else. You want a big house, you want a bigger house, you want a bigger house than that, you want a nicer car, you want a new car. You want all this stuff. And, now even though I was before kind of minimalist, now I'm like the minimal minimalist. It's because I was alone for so long that you're open to that and you crave that human interaction. And there's nothing like waking up with a light rain in a campground by yourself. And even though it's solitude at times, the smell is completely different. I mean, we're a species that relies on all our senses, and in nature, you have all of them invigorated. I ride through Oklahoma and Kansas and see all the trash everywhere. And that's a downer. It's the reversal of that. It's undoing everything you feel beautiful in nature. You see how man just destroys it and just, for lack of a better term, shits on it. Encompassing everything in your life. I don't think the tour is in and itself spiritual. It's just taking your experience that you've had in your life and taking it in that moment. It gives you context differently, because everybody's experience is going to create a different spiritual moment, even in that same location. As much as it is a cliche and anything else you want to say, the bike is freedom. I think it is so simple. It is the simplest machine, the most efficient machine still on the face of the earth. So go in there, understand that you will not be in your comfort zone pretty much 90% of the time.
Last summer, I did a bike tour up the coast of California from San Diego to San Francisco. It was about 600 miles and lasted about 12 days. Last summer, I did a bike tour up the coast of California from San Diego to San Francisco. It was about 600 miles and lasted about 12 days. And I guess because I was only having that one goal to get to the next campground, it kept things very simple. Where there was only that one thing rather than handfuls of other tasks that had to be done. It was really just get on the bike, pack up, and go, and then get there and unpack and sleep, basically. Winding through the trees, and there are no cars out. And it was just really peaceful to be like in our little line of three, like biking through the trees and then coming out to these giant cliffs and the ocean and all these like beautiful rock formations and having nobody else around. It was just really, really cool. I'm just always around people, and to be out there on the road alone, it just felt like a weight was kind of lifted off. Every item that we had with us in our packs had a specific purpose. And halfway through the trip, we even stopped by at like a family friend's house and kind of got rid of the excess stuff that we had, because we thought that we didn't have very much, but it turns out we weren't even using some of the stuff that we had with us. So then going on for the rest of the tour, we had even less. You just kind of really noticed all the excess things in your life, and it really made me think, do I really need these things in my life? If it doesn't have a specific purpose, or I don't really need it, do I actually need to have it? So the hardest thing about the trip for me was a little abstract, I guess. I was dealing with letting go, because I had just recently been broken up with. I had some residual anger at the end of the bike tour. I felt like I had I was done being mad. Basically, I pedaled it all out. So yeah, just being away from my normal life helped me to find harmony within myself. Not worry about not doing certain things, just go out and do it, because you never know when you won't be able to do it, basically. And that was really a theme for the whole trip, because I didn't plan on going on the trip. It was a last minute thing, and you never know when you're going to have another opportunity to do something like that, something that will have a positive impact, or maybe a negative, but you never know until you get out there and you do something. Here in San Diego, it can be a bit superficial, whereas doing the bike tour was deeper than that. It was more personal. The things that you think are the end all be all usually aren't. Take every chance that you can, because you don't know if you'll get the same kind of chance again. I don't know, it's kind of cool.
What is kind of cool?
Be in nature. Be floating in a hammock and be looking up at the stars. Be floating around in space almost.
nothing compared to feeling small. And not in a bad way, not in a I'm short, you're tall, but there are bigger things. Winter of 2015 that I needed to do something, that I needed to do the bike tour. And I just felt stuck. I felt like I needed to remove myself from wherever I was and the things that I was surrounded by and go off and do something different. And not that my life is monotonous, but that I felt that where I wasn't going anywhere, that I was making the wrong decision about the person that I wanted to be. And I knew I could do better, and I knew I could accomplish bigger things, and that I wasn't giving myself the confidence to say, look, I can do this. I went on the bike tour because I felt stuck, and going on this bike tour, I felt free. Growing up, I was the younger child, and my sister was sort of always there, and I never really felt independent. And the bike tour was my way of being independent and doing something on my own, and it's okay. Are they all doing that?
Over 3.
Well, Addie Melcher, I did a bike tour from San Diego to Central Oregon. Okay. So a year ago, me and 2 friends decided to do a bike tour from San Diego to Central Oregon, up to my summer camp in Sisters, Oregon. We left San Diego May 16th, 2016, and I rode into Sisters, Oregon, June 13th. So it was 28 days.